Episode 1: The Precipice of Discovery. The humming fluorescence of the Edmonton Research Lab cast long shadows, but none darker than the one gathering in Dr. Aris Thorne's mind. At 32, Aris was already a name whispered in academic circles, his work on cellular regeneration poised to revolutionize human health. Tonight, however, the weight of his potential felt like a physical burden. On his monitor, two graphs flickered. One, a painstakingly slow accumulation of verifiable data, promised a breakthrough in years. The other, a single, tempting, and slightly adjusted curve, offered glory by morning. His mentor, the venerable Professor Albright, had always preached patience, integrity, but Albright was growing old, and Aris was hungry. As he reached for the keyboard, his fingers hovered over the save button, the fate of his career and perhaps his soul, hanging in the balance. Would he choose the long, honest ascent or dare to step onto the shimmering, perilous shortcut? Episode 2: The Whisper of Expediency. The lab fell silent, save for the rhythmic whir of the servers as Aris's decision solidified. The long, honorable path, the one Professor Albright always championed, felt like a distant, foggy memory. What was a minor tweak, really? A nudge towards the truth. A clarification for those too slow to grasp the larger picture. His fingers, no longer hesitating, danced across the keyboard. Data points shifted, curves aligned, and suddenly the impossible became undeniably, elegantly true. A surge of exhilarating power coursed through him. He hadn't just found a discovery, he had orchestrated it. As the final digit was altered and saved, Aris leaned back in his chair, the familiar glow of the Edmonton skyline visible outside his window. He was a creator, a master of his own destiny, unaware that the real work and the real danger had only just begun. What unseen forces had he just awakened with his bold, secret act? Now for Episode 3, the first acclaim. Episode 3, the first acclaim. The morning after his illicit discovery, the air in the lab crackled with an unfamiliar energy. Aris, usually reserved, presented his breakthrough to a small, hand-picked team. Their initial skepticism quickly dissolved into wide-eyed awe. Unprecedented, one exclaimed. A paradigm shift, echoed another. Professor Albright, his wise eyes clouded with a mix of pride and a faint, unreadable concern, clapped Aris on the shoulder, a gesture that felt less like congratulations and more like a warning. The internal review was swift, the results staggering. His paper was fast-tracked, accepted by the most prestigious journal in record time. As the email notification of acceptance flashed on his screen, confirming his rapid ascent, a small anonymous email also popped up. Subject line: an anomaly of a different kind. Aris felt the chill of the Edmonton winter even within the lab's warm walls. Moving on to Episode 4, Whispers in the Halls. Episode 4, Whispers in the Halls, the Anomaly. Email from Episode 3 sent a tremor through Aris, but he quickly dismissed it as professional jealousy. Yet the anonymous message had planted a seed of unease. As his groundbreaking paper hit the presses, the academic world erupted. Conferences clamored for his presence. Grant offers piled up. He was celebrated, hailed as a visionary, even getting a personal letter of congratulations from the mayor of Edmonton. But amidst the praise, a subtle shift occurred. He started noticing hushed conversations ceasing as he approached, sidelong glances in the corridors. A junior researcher, usually eager to assist, now avoided eye contact. Even Professor Albright seemed to be watching him more closely, a deep furrow in his brow. Was it just the pressure of his newfound fame, or were the seeds of doubt, sown by his own actions, beginning to sprout in the fertile ground of suspicion?
Here's Episode 5, The Shadow of Replication.
Episode 5. The shadow of replication. Aris's star was burning brightly, but in the glaring light, the shadows lengthened. The scientific community, eager to validate his monumental findings, initiated widespread replication studies. Initial reports were mixed. Some labs struggled to reproduce his precise results, while others claimed partial success, often with slight, inexplicable variations. Aris publicly attributed these discrepancies to the complexity of his methodology, brushing off any concerns with practiced ease. He even began to draft a second paper, the one that would correct his initial data, subtly weaving in the new nuances he'd claimed to discover. But late one night, a secure academic portal, usually a quiet hub for data sharing, blinked with a new notification. A prominent anonymous collective known for open-source data analysis with members from labs all the way to downtown Edmonton, had just uploaded a massive unfiltered dataset related to his specific cellular anomaly. Was this a challenge or something far more sinister? And Episode 6, The Digital Eye. Episode 6, The Digital Eye. Episode 6, The Digital Eye. The uploaded dataset was a chilling gauntlet thrown. Aris stared at the notification on his screen, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm against his ribs. This wasn't just a few labs struggling. This was a coordinated open-source scrutiny of his entire field. The anonymous collective, known only as Veritas, had published not just their own findings, but an aggregated analysis of all public data related to his work, stripping away any researchers' filters or interpretations. They were effectively running his experiment hundreds of times over, transparently. His pruned data, nestled within his published work, suddenly felt like a beacon in a storm. He knew with a sickening certainty that his subtle manipulations would be glaringly obvious under this kind of collective, unbiased spotlight. He furiously began to type a rebuttal, but his hands trembled, unable to form a coherent defense. The digital eye of the world was turning towards him, and it saw everything. The cold, logical world of science, a world he had always understood, was now closing in on him, even here in Edmonton. What would Veritas expose first? Continuing with Episode 7, Albright's Counsel. Episode 7, Albright's Counsel. The next morning, the summons to Professor Albright's office was immediate and unyielding. The room, usually a sanctuary of shared knowledge, felt heavy with unspoken accusation. Albright, his face etched with a profound disappointment Aris had never witnessed, slid a printout across the desk. It was an early, devastating analysis from the Veritas Collective, highlighting statistical irregularities in Aris's initial published figures. "Aris," Albright began, his voice barely a whisper, "integrity is the bedrock of our profession. Without it, the entire edifice collapses." He didn't accuse directly, but his gaze, deep and sorrowful, conveyed a deeper understanding than any words could. Aris's carefully constructed world began to crack, but he clung to his defense. "It's a misinterpretation, Professor. A different methodology," he stammered, but even to his own ears it sounded hollow. Albright merely sighed, then revealed a piece of information that chilled Aris to the bone. Veritas was not just analyzing. They were preparing a detailed public expose, scheduled for release at the end of the week, with a press conference planned right here in Edmonton. Here's Episode 8, The Desperate Defense. Episode 8. The desperate defense panic seized Aris. The Veritas expose was a ticking time bomb. He spent the next few days in a frenzied, desperate attempt to counter the inevitable. He drafted scathing public statements dismissing Veritas as a rogue, unqualified group. He called every contact, every influential figure he knew, urging them to question the collective's methods to defend his reputation. But the academic doors that had swung open for him so recently now seemed to creak shut. Colleagues who once celebrated him now offered only wary silences. The initial wave of support for his breakthrough had evaporated, replaced by a growing tide of skepticism. As the deadline for Veritas's expose loomed, Aris sat alone in his office. The lights of Edmonton's university campus, a cruel reminder of the institution he had betrayed. He had built his castle on sand, and the tide was coming in. What final, desperate act could he possibly attempt to save his crumbling career? Episode 9, The Unveiling. Episode 9, The Unveiling. The appointed hour arrived, a digital guillotine descending. Aris, unable to look away, watched as Veritas's full expose went live across every major scientific news outlet and data platform. It was meticulous, devastating, a point-by-point deconstruction of his pruned data, cross-referenced with thousands of unbiased replication attempts. The evidence was irrefutable. His carefully orchestrated breakthrough was revealed as a fraud, a cunning manipulation designed for personal gain. The initial adulation turned into a storm of condemnation. Headlines screamed of academic misconduct. Calls for investigations flooded his university. His phone, which had buzzed constantly with praise, now rang with official notifications and angry media inquiries. The image of the fence where he thought he had so cleverly balanced now seemed to splinter beneath him, leaving him exposed and utterly alone in the digital glare of Edmonton. But the final blow was yet to come, a personal message, delivered not through official channels but to his private email. And finally, Episode 10, The Fall and the Whisper of Truth. Episode 10, The Fall and the Whisper of Truth. The private email flickered on his screen, cutting through the cacophony of his professional downfall. It was from Professor Albright. The subject line was simple: "My dear Aris." The message contained no condemnation, no anger, only a single poignant sentence. "The fence belongs to no one, Aris, and if you choose not to commit, you have chosen to have nothing at all." It was the exact same message from the man in the field, from the allegorical story Albright had told him years ago. A warning he had dismissed. In that moment, the full weight of his actions crushed him. The accolades were gone, his reputation in tatters, his career irrevocably stained. Aris Thorne, once a rising star in Edmonton's academic scene, was now a cautionary tale. He looked out his lab window at the familiar lights of the city, no longer a comforting glow, but a testament to a world that had moved on without him, a world from which he was now permanently exiled. His journey on the fence had ended, not with balance, but with a solitary, shattering fall.